Hello everybody, here I am with a Hitchcock review, a rather long-awaited Hitchcock review. This is the movie that I was referring to a couple videos ago as being the one that it was hard to find time to watch because the movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes long. If you guessed that I was referring to North by Northwest, congratulations, you were correct. North by Northwest is possibly Hitchcock's grandest foray into wrong man territory. Released in 1959, it stars Cary Grant as Roger Thornhill, an advertising executive who's mistaken for someone else named George Kaplan. A simple case of mistaken identity turns into something far more serious when Thornhill is abducted and his kidnappers attempt to murder him for no reason that he can comprehend, and he ends up on the run, not just from the bad guys who are trying to kill him, but from the police as well. As it goes with these Hitchcock reviews, I'm going to have to cut off my description there. It's so much better to watch these movies if you've never seen them before, knowing next to nothing. So out of respect for anyone who's watching this video who's never seen North by Northwest, I'm going to keep my plot summary short. Unfortunately, that means that my hands are slightly tied as I try to review the movie, but I will do my best to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. I'm not sure, but I think this might be the first time I've seen this movie from start to finish since I was a kid. You can imagine that watching it as a child, there was a lot I didn't understand. Veiled Cold War illusions, secret agents, spies, double agents, the potent effects of a bottle of bourbon, the spicy innuendo. Two of the biggest things that I took away from it were that it was possible to run around on Mount Rushmore, and that if you wanted to read the last thing someone had written on a pad of paper, you could color over it with a pencil to reveal the message. I thought that was just the coolest thing when I was a kid, and yes, I did practice doing it myself on scraps of paper. It kind of amazes me that in a movie where so much happens, that is one of the things that stuck with me. North by Northwest is arguably Hitchcock's biggest action-adventure film, considered to be something of a precursor to James Bond. It maintains a brisk pace throughout as the action jumps from place to place, including or referencing notable locations and landmarks, like the UN Building, Grand Central Station, and Mount Rushmore along the way. Apparently, Cary Grant thought the script was a mess and complained that he couldn't follow the storyline. Upon hearing that, Hitchcock was quite pleased. He wanted Roger Thornhill, and the audience right along with him, to be confused and misled. I freely admit that I occasionally have difficulty keeping things straight, and it doesn't help that Hitchcock gets pretty wily and plays fast and loose with explanatory details. He definitely doesn't think the audience always needs to be told how or why something happened. Take the crop duster, for example. We never know the identity of the pilot, or the scene on the tarmac, a vital conversation for relaying key pieces of information, yet for several seconds the actor's lines are obliterated by engine noise, or the climactic chase scene where someone is literally left hanging and we never get to see just how the scene concludes. Such cinematic trickery is what you get with Hitchcock, of course, and probably part of the reason why we enjoy watching his movies again and again. Hitchcock movies usually have one or two unforgettable scenes that become that movie's trademark. But which is the trademark scene in North by Northwest? Is it the famous Mount Rushmore sequence, in which our protagonists are forced to scramble for their lives across a dangerously high national monument? Or is it the crop duster scene with its slow build-up as Thornhill is dropped off at a crossroads in the middle of nowhere? He waits in the hot sun, unsure of what to do and growing more anxious as the minutes tick by, until at last the tension explodes into heart-stopping insanity as the crop duster in the distance makes a beeline in his direction. This lengthy scene, and the image of Cary Grant running for his life in that well-tailored gray suit, is one of the most iconic in film history. Cary Grant was probably too old to be doing things like climbing over rock faces in dress shoes and hurling himself into dusty ditches, but he pulls it all off, probably because he's Cary Grant. I don't know how old the character is supposed to be, certainly younger than Grant's actual age at the time of filming, which was 55. You really don't notice it, except when you consider that his mother seems surprisingly young by comparison. Truth be told, Grant was only less than 10 years younger than Jesse Royce Landis, who played his mother, but we don't really need to quibble about that because it's Cary Grant, and nobody could have played this role quite as satisfyingly as he did. Not Jimmy Stewart, who wanted it desperately, and not Gregory Peck, who MGM wanted. Starring opposite Grant is Eva Marie Saint as Eve Kendall, one of Hitchcock's coolest and most worldly blondes, who Saint plays with a lot of poise and self-control. Thornhill hits it off with Eve right away, and their flirtatious and romantic scenes are some of the only ones in which Hitchcock allows the movie to slow down. Their dialogue is packed with censor-defying innuendo, all of which went completely over my head when I was little. Personally, I get a little impatient when these scenes go on too long. I want to move on with the exciting story. James Mason plays the role of Philip Van Damme, who might be Hitchcock's most urbane villain. To be frank, I'm not a James Mason fan. I feel like I should be, because he has a distinctive voice, one of the most distinctive voices of the era, and I like distinctive voices, especially English ones. But personal feelings aside, watching it this time I realized how well his voice and his intonation suit the character. His voice is silky, kind of pleasant, but also kind of oily and smug, and that fits a man in Van Damme's position. Even when things aren't going his way, he is unruffled, unperturbed, acting as if he's completely in charge of the situation. Martin Landau plays Van Damme's slick henchman Leonard, and as I mentioned, Jesse Royce Landis plays Thornhill's mother, a youthful, sarcastic woman eager to be done with her son's nonsense so she can get to her bridge club. Also in the cast is someone who, as far as I can tell, appeared in more Hitchcock movies than any other actor, Leo G. Carroll. We usually think of Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart as the actors Hitchcock used the most. They're both tied at 4. However, Leo G. Carroll has 6 Hitchcock movies to his credit: Rebecca, Suspicion, Spellbound, The Paradine Case, Strangers on a Train, and North by Northwest, which is probably his most famous film role as the Professor. Also, while we're talking frequent Hitchcock actors, we briefly see, in an uncredited role as Thornhill's secretary, Doreen Lang, who Hitchcock familiars may recognize as a bank teller from The Wrong Man, and, more famously, the hysterical mother in the diner from The Birds. The opening titles are designed by Saul Bass, and they're amazing. Bass also designed the titles for Vertigo the year before, and Psycho the year after. A great opening title sequence tends to be a fantastic platform to establish the musical theme, and that's the case here. The music is by Hitchcock favorite Bernard Herrmann, who also composed music for The Wrong Man, The Man Who Knew Too Much, Vertigo, Psycho, and Marnie. The North by Northwest theme is urgent and lively, a perfect fit for the movie. North by Northwest is a fun, thrilling ride, widely considered to be one of Hitchcock's best. If you like Hitchcock and you haven't seen this one, you should really check it out. And then after you've seen it, you might want to read up on some of the trivia related to the movie. There are so many little things that Hitchcock squeezed in there: historical references, verbal gags, visual gags. This is probably another reason why the best of Hitchcock's movies bear rewatching. You always get something new out of it. You can come into it with a different perspective. You can watch it the first time just to watch the movie and get the story straight. The next time you can watch it just looking for visual things and seeing how he sets up a scene. There's really so much to see, and I can't possibly discuss all of it just in this little review, and I'm not a film scholar. These are just a few of my impressions on the movie. With any of these movies, I do recommend doing a little of your own research if you're so inclined, because there's a lot to learn, and it makes the whole viewing experience, when you go to watch the movie a second, or a third, or a fourth time, makes the whole thing even more interesting. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'd love to hear what you think of the movie, so go ahead and leave your thoughts. Just please no spoilers, in case there's anyone reading the comments who has not seen the movie, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching! Bye!